All right, welcome back to another episode of Just Buy Less Coffee, answering the deeper questions of American politics. My name is Troy, aka Keep Troy Blue. With me, as always, is Kathy Cannon, aka Cannon's Fodder. We got a lot going on today. How are you doing, Kathy? The world's kind of on fire here again. Roger Stone's threatening people, threatening congressmen all over the place.
Look,
Oh boy, it's
I get
cold.
excited when Roger. I know it's fucking cold. It's 49 degrees outside, and I live in Florida. That's unacceptable.
It's
It's
49 in
fine.
Florida. Holy crap!
Gross. Yeah, it's gross. I
Yeah.
looked at the fucking weather map, and it's like 7 in Texas, and I was like, but it's only like 23 in Vermont, and I was like, the world's upside down when Vermont is hotter than Texas, but I just work here. It's fine. But yeah, I always get excited when Roger Stone's in the news because he's the big bad guy. I always tell you, like, if Roger Stone's involved, fucking chicanery.
He's such a comic book villain. Oh my god, the pictures of that
He
guy are just
does, I
hilarious.
know. Well, I
I
think
had
he
to
kind
work
of
him into
leans
the
into that a bit.
I had to work him into the outline just because I know you love a good like Roger Stone chat here.
Dude, like the irony that he's going down for secret recordings, I can't even begin. Like this poor bastard, man. You learned literally nothing.
How is he still alive? He's got to be like 90 years old at this point. Like, what the hell's going on with
How
that
old
guy?
is he actually? Well, he was like
Why
he
why do
worked.
terrible people live so long? I don't get it.
Well, that's the question to ask at the end of it all, right? But he was like a baby when he worked
Oh,
for
okay.
Nixon.
So he
Like
was
he was
young.
one of those fresh out of college kids. Yeah, he was like in this one of those hot upshot, like upstart people, whatever. He's 71 now.
Okay.
So in 72, he was
He's only
literally 20 years
71?
old.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, so he was literally 20 years old, like in the Nixon White House in 1972.
So he was Nixon's like Stephen Miller. I think people forget how
He
young Stephen Miller is.
Yeah, kinda. Like, he was just sort of like where he got popular was just he always seems to be there. What did they call him? Like the, something corruption, Forrest Gump or whatever, like,
Yeah, he's always
he's
around.
just he's just always there, without anybody ever realizing how he got there. Like, he was just a little, like, shitbird kid working on the campaign, and then all of a sudden was, like, advising on how to cover up Watergate, right? Like
Well, he got caught. I guess it just came out. This was in 2020, but the recording just came out
Yeah.
talking to a guy named Saul Greco. So right there, wow. But he was a Saul Greco was a apparently an NYPD like cop for a while, but was ostensibly Roger Stone's bodyguard. Anyway, Stone got caught on recording talking to Greco about assassinating Eric Swalwell and Jerry Nadler. He said, quote, "It's time to do it. Let's go find
I know.
Swalwell. It's time to do it. Then we'll see how brave the rest of them are. It's either Nadler or Swalwell has to die before the election. They need to get the message. Let's go find Swalwell and get this over with. I'm just not putting up with this shit anymore." End quote. So,
I gotta say, like, what is their deal with Swalwell? Like, I feel like that came out of almost nowhere.
well, I don't know. Swallow just bugs them for some reason. I mean, he's
I
kind of like
guess.
in the way that well, I mean, he's like a young, sort of smug Democrat that, like,
Yes.
always rubs it in their face, kind of like Moskowitz. But
I guess so. I just feel like it's a very random person for them to be so hung up on not liking, like who the
yeah.
fuck they're like I whatever. I don't know. They're weird. They make no
But he
sense.
was going after Nadler because Nadler was the chair of I guess, the Judiciary Committee at that point,
Yeah.
and
Nadler
they
makes
were,
more sense because he has power.
yeah. Well, they were investigating. Well, Swallow was on the Judiciary Committee, but like, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
But Nadler was the chair, and I guess they were, investigate at that point. They were investigating Trump commuting the sentence of Roger Stone because Roger Stone had been like convicted of stuff in the Russia plot.
Yeah.
Trump had commuted his sentence. Nadler's Judiciary Committee was investigating that commutation of the sentence, and at that point, I guess. But Stone, yeah, I mean, Stone is just, I mean, he's crazy. I mean, he,
He's a
he was
creep.
working with the Proud Boys. He was advising
Mhm.
Trump to use the military to stop the certification of Biden's election. I mean, he's just, if he wasn't so
He's a
clownish,
creep.
he'd be actually like pretty terrifying.
I know. I love when he dresses up like the Penguin. Like, he does it on purpose. There's no way you're telling me that he did
Oh,
not
yeah.
buy those glasses and that top hat with the intention of being a Gotham villain.
Yeah, he's got like the goggle glasses, you know what I mean? Like he's
Mhm.
journeying to the center of the earth or some shit.
Yep, he has leaned into his
He's
absurdity
just
and whatever,
taking
fine,
on that character. Yeah.
Yeah.
Weird stuff.
He's a Looney Tune.
100 days of the Israel war.
Mm.
I want to do a little assessment here. So Israel's been attacking Gaza for 100 days now. Close to 30,000 civilian casualties, most of them children, or I guess over half of them children. They are being brought. They have been, or they're about to be. They're being brought before the Hague for war crimes. I think they're going to be charged at the Hague for war crimes, which the sad irony of that is kind of
Yeah,
incredible.
I know. But life is nothing if not ironic. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like 70 years out from the formation of Israel, and they're being charged with war crimes. What's our assessment here, Kathy? I mean, I just don't know how, at this point, I don't know how Israel recovers from this on the international stage.
Good question.
I mean, even some of them, other than people on Fox News, and MAGA Republicans, I don't even think that, like, the ardent sort of Israel supporters in the U.S. are kind of losing their gumption here. It's just not. I don't think it's sustainable. I don't know if Israel recovers from this on the international
Yeah.
stage. They've lost all their credibility.
It's going to be hard to defend them, and the deep dive today, I'm going to kind of go into war powers resolution and sort of how and why we're so stuck in this, and how and why, like, how Biden's able to send bombs to Yemen and all of these things, right? Like, there are reasons for it. But the bigger reason, and I guess the one we can kind of unpack slightly here, it's the economics of war, man. I hate to tell you, but like, Eisenhower warned us, right? Don't dismantle the industrial complex, invest in domestic infrastructure, don't make the economy tied to conflict, otherwise you're going to live in perpetual conflict.
Right.
And oh golly gee willikers, Batman, it's almost like we got our own penguin villain instead of heeding that very solid advice. So yeah, like, we have to figure out how to change the entire trajectory of all of this. Like, we need to reassess our alliance, I think, with Israel, or at least reassess what power we can yield over them. The biggest problem with the conflict I see and how it's playing out in American politics is this perception that everyone thinks Biden could just, with one phone call, stop this. No, he couldn't. Like, and I don't know where that perception comes from, but like, if you remember, Obama was super duper critical of Netanyahu and the expanding settlements into the West Bank. He criticized Netanyahu big time, especially with respect to the occupation of Gaza and the expanding settlements into the West Bank. He tried to get him to stop, and not only could he not get him to stop, but Netanyahu amped up his efforts because he was so mad at being questioned by Obama, right? Like, one of the big criticisms everybody, especially Republicans, oddly enough, gave, well, I guess not oddly enough, had of Obama was that he was so critical of Netanyahu that he ruined our relationship with him. Part of why they loved Donald Trump so much is he's restored our relationship with Israel.
Exactly.
Right?
That was sort of the Trump claim, was that Trump was going to restore the damaged relationship with Israel because of Barack Obama. Yeah.
Right. And
but that was just that was Netanyahu, like, not liking that Obama, dared to challenge him.
Exactly. And that's what it is. And I was like, if America had the power to tell Israel what to do, then 15 years ago, right, we would have ended expanding settlements into the West Bank. If we had that kind of power, Obama would have stopped a lot of these things if he could have just gotten on the phone and said, do this or else. That's not the dynamic we have with Israel. We are super interdependent on Israel. Like, we wrapped ourselves up in this alliance where we will tank our own economy if we cut ties with Israel. And that hasn't really been as much of a problem, except now our economy is literally tied to a genocide playing out. So we are in a situation where we have to decide on whether or not we tank our domestic economy in order to turn on a long-standing ally that's also allies with our allies, that has a mutual interest in the region. So it's like,
it's not just us, it's very much Germany and the UK as well.
Right. And that's why it really, really sucks, because I don't think anybody's super duper happy with what Israel is doing, with what Netanyahu is doing. But they're in that fucked up position that, like, they have to not piss off an ally. And it's like, this is going to be the scary part that I say. If you remember the causes of World War One, right? There's the little acronym that we have for the kids, the main causes of the war, right? MAIN, militarism. All right, so do we see a militaristic Israel, a militaristic Hamas, a militaristic America, a militaristic NATO? There we go. A complex system of alliances. A, do we have a complex system of alliances? Yep, sure do, right? Do we have imperialism? Yep, sure do. We have imperialist tendencies, Russia trying to take Ukraine, right? Israel trying to take over the Palestinian territories. And then we have rising nationalism. Oh, golly, I'm going to let y'all figure that one out for yourself, right? So, like, that's kind of the situation here. So we don't want to get involved with backing Israel, right? We can't put troops on the ground, but we can't abandon them, because then if we abandon them, then they're cut loose with no allies to answer to. Like, neither of those scenarios is good. Like,
right. Yeah, I like how you put that they're just kind of, there's still, it's some level tethered by the, international opinion, although I think that's actually for, Netanyahu in response to the Hague thing was basically just like, fuck it, I don't care.
was double down dictator, man, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
And that's
They're
the
just
situation.
he's not learning anything. He's gone. He's just gone.
He's a
completely, he's a
psychopath.
genocidal maniac, and
Yeah.
that state has to rid themselves of that regime if that state's going to survive. Like,
Yeah, and that's kind of the only thing. But then now we're in that really fucked up situation America is in again, where we have a Frankenstein that we created, which is what happened with Iraq, which is what
well, the
happened
fucking
with
British
Afghanistan.
created him, but yeah, I get your point.
But we kind of picked up the British mantle and said, hey, this is pretty, right?
Yeah.
And like, that's the thing. Like, the only way that we're going to get out of this unscathed is in a similar way that the British Empire had to dismantle themselves, right? It had to be like we need an ally to take over our role in the area while we go back and reinvest in our own domestic infrastructure that we've neglected for decades whilst conquering the globe, right? It's almost like we did the same exact fucking thing without learning a goddamn lesson.
Well, Israel had just kind of become, was on the verge of kind of being accepted in that region. I mean, like, over the last 20 or 30 years or so, alliances with Egypt, alliances with Jordan, more decently more accepted in the Middle Eastern sphere, giving Gaza to Hamas, pulling settlements out of the West Bank. I mean, it was really, they were on the right trajectory, and now it's really just I don't how is Egypt going to have any sort of functional alliance with Israel now? Like, how's Jordan?
I don't think they do.
Saudi Arabia was about to sign an alliance. Saudi Arabia is not going to come anywhere near Israel now. So I don't.
I know it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
it's
not.
put us in a.
They've pissed away all of their goodwill. They're not safer. They're much less safe. They're not safe at all. I don't see how anyone could possibly believe that they've fulfilled their mandate for for Jewish protection and statehood. But I don't know.
No, they definitely haven't. And then the worst part is, and this is the part that people aren't really getting, is that their actions, their behaviors have put us at risk, right? So that's why the Houthi attacks are happening. So whether we cut our ties with Israel or now or not, the people that were involved in this conflict right now won't care, because they will remember the 80-year alliance. They're not going to be like, you're not running away now, right? So no matter what we do now, we're involved in this because we've been so long allied with them, right? Like,
we just reset ourselves for another 20-year war, essentially.
Yeah, basically.
With somebody,
Unless King Charles gets a hair up his bonnet and he's like, you know what? I miss being an imperial power. I wouldn't put past Chucky.
I hope that Netanyahu's regime is charged with war crimes. I hope he's delegitimized on the world stage. And again, to preserve the Jewish state, not to destroy it. I think, that society has to change. I think they need a do-over. I don't even know if they can function anymore in that region. I do believe in the validity of a Jewish state. I just think that this one is so tarnished, and so I don't know how. Again, I don't know how they recover from that. I don't know how the Jewish state of Israel, as it is presently constructed, recovers from this. I really don't.
Well, it's this government mainly. It's Netanyahu and his coalition government. So, like I said,
there is no left-wing movement anymore in Israel. Like, the labor movement's dead. It's basically Netanyahu on the far right, and then Netanyahu's opposition is center right. Kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah, except that there's like a decent chunk of the population that's like very unhappy, like the young
That's true.
population in Israel. So it's
Yeah.
gonna have to be a similar thing than it is here, where you're gonna have to have, and it's always how it works, right? Like it was young people that unified Italy. It's young people that like ended or brought about civil rights. It's young
Hmm.
people that brought, like it's always young people getting involved that change things because young people have an interest in making sure the future is better. Old people don't give a fuck. They're not going to be here for the future, you know?
The ironic thing is that, the ironic thing about all the Israel hate is that Israel has achieved a lot of what we would want to achieve. I mean, they have universal health care, they have free housing, they have free education. That like if they're, they've crapped all over their own democracy over the last couple decades. But yeah, it was
Yeah,
it was a highly
they
functioning society until recently.
they've gone very King Herod, it
It's
seems.
very very militaristic.
Yep, yep.
So yeah, I don't know. We'll
Such
see.
is life, such is life, I guess. But yeah.
I think Biden has to cut the cord, especially again, like the Hague stuff. I just appreciate that we're no longer just like pretending that this is normal, on the international stage. It's going to
Hmm.
force Biden and the Europeans to admit that like this is not a good, like they're backing the wrong horse here. This is not a good place to be.
Yeah, but they're gonna have to try and figure out how to do so with, out 80 years of egg on their face.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Well, I think Biden's on his way to
we'll
doing
see.
that. I mean, he even said the other day that he's working on getting them to stop. I don't know how much. I don't know how that's gonna, because Netanyahu's response to the Hague is telling me that he's completely lost it. He's a maniac.
Yeah,
So I don't
that
know if
was
even Biden's going to be able to just talk him down at this point. I don't know. It may
maybe
take
it's
more
not about
pressure than that.
talking him down anymore. Maybe it's talking about ousting him. And like I said,
Yeah,
I was never a big fan of like American regime change, but like
yeah,
I don't know, like what else do you do except I don't know. I don't know. You know what? I don't know. I just work here.
yeah. It's just
Why
again,
I'm not an international policy advisor. Now we get
it's
it, right?
it's just the irony of Israel coming before the Hague and then being defended by Germany at the Hague is just kind of astounding, absolutely astounding.
Yeah,
Um,
it wasn't on my bingo card. Let's just put it that way. It wasn't
U.S.
on
again, U.S. and U.K. attacking the Houthis. That one, I mean, it's not just the United States and the U.K. attacking them. I mean, it's the entire region has been kind of crippled because they've been attacking shipping on the Red Sea.
Yeah, that's the
But again,
thing.
we
Like
wouldn't be in that position if Israel wasn't forcing all this crap right now. So
yeah, exactly. Like that's the part about that I had to like one of the kids came into class and they were like, "Why are we just randomly dropping bombs on Yemen?" I'm like, "Well, it's not random. They have blown up a couple or attacked or shot at a few American like warships in the region." And when I said that they were like, "Wait, really?" I'm like, "Yeah. We don't just, start bombing people for funsies, right? There's usually reasons." And they're like,
there's
"Well, why
usually
are
an
they
economic reason for it.
ships?" I was like, "Well, they're attacking our ships because of our alliance with Israel." And then they got all
Yeah,
mad again. And I was like, "Well, but our alliance with Israel is why you have, AirPods right now. So
right.
perhaps shut up." Yeah.
Um, but there again, yeah, I mean, but there again, like the Saudis, the Egyptians, everybody that depends on um, that shipping lane, the entire Middle East, essentially. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Like
it's
wait till India starts getting pissed off too, because
it's crazy. It's
yeah.
crazy. It's absolutely crazy. The Houthis are backed by Iran, so they're not. I just you have to realize that like Iran is not a good government. Iran is not good to its people. Iran is not good for human rights. These Iranian, as crappy as Israel is, it's not. Again, both two things can be true at once. Like Hamas is not good. The Houthis are not good. These are hard right religious extremist regimes, organizations, and they don't
Mhm.
have human rights on their priority list at all.
I
Not that
know. It's
Israel
really
does at this
bad.
point either, but again, two things can be true at once. So we don't have to like back the Houthis and talk about how great the Houthis are all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's like I said at the very beginning, it's hard to tell you who the good guy is
There
in
is no
this
good
one
guy.
because
Yeah.
there's not really a good guy. There's just varied levels of bad guy with varied levels of bad outcomes, right? There's not even really a good outcome to this because like this two-state solution, that's the end goal, right? But
Well, it
to get
was.
there,
Now I don't even see that's kind of gone. At
I
this point.
guess so. You know what?
Yeah.
I don't know. This is why I focused on domestic politics instead of international because it gets so complicated so quick.
Well, anyway, the only good guys I see are just the innocent civilians that are being killed.
Yeah.
and
It's always the
definite
civilians to pay.
genocide.
Yep.
Yeah. So, moving on from that. So Trump town hall. Trump had an Iowa Fox News. Yeah, back to domestic politics a little bit. Trump had a Fox News Iowa town hall, which could not be more of like a bullshit softball event. By the way, every time they do one of these town halls for it seems like for any of the candidates, I saw the Desantis one too, and that was a softball mess.
He got in a fight with a guy on his side. Like, how does he keep fighting with people who agree with him? I don't understand this man. I swear.
He's a mess. He's an absolute mess.
No word for it.
So this Trump town hall was ridiculous. It was completely full of lies. No pushback whatsoever. I mean, obviously it was Fox, so there's not going to be any pushback. But it was just this total crap. He keeps trying to present himself as this candidate of peace, like talking about how he's just playing into this thing, which I don't even think he invented this talking point, but he doesn't. The ironic thing is that Trump created this movement, and now Trump is sort of a servant of his own movement because he hasn't invented any sort of talking points.
Nope.
Like the only talking points he invented were that like Muslim or Mexicans are rapists, and that we should build the wall. Since that point, all of the talking points have been coming from Fox News, coming from his movement, and one of them is that there were no wars while he was president. I don't even think he made that shit up, but he's definitely like repeating that lie, that talking point, that there were no wars or no new wars or whatever under his presidency. Let me play a couple of the sound bites from that town hall on that topic.
All right, so to Robert's question, this is clearly a focus of the Biden campaign. So can you say tonight that political violence is never acceptable?
Well, of course that's right. And of course, I'm the one that had very little of it. Take a look at wars. Again, I didn't start. I wasn't involved in wars. We beat the hell out of.
I wasn't involved in wars.
Well, I mean, you cut it off right before he said we beat the hell out of ISIS.
Yeah,
so we weren't involved in any
yeah.
wars. We beat the hell out of ISIS. Well, how were you beating the hell out of international organizations if not fighting wars, sir? Like, I'm
not involved in wars. We beat the hell out of ISIS. Okay.
Also, there was like very little. Like 2020 was famous for its political violence. 2021 is literally famous worldwide for its political violence. We had very little political violence. You were famous for Charlottesville. Like you had nothing but political violence, bro.
We had armed militias on both sides marching in the streets. We had like my neighbor. We had people taking down their like Biden signs. My neighbor, I remember she like. Before the election, she like packed up all her signs and hid them in the backyard because she didn't want, like, we were all convinced that there was going to be like violence on, the day after the election or whatever. We didn't want to be targeted. We had Trump support. Like we had a community watch group that was like, there would be like a Trump rally in our community. And we would have like safe routes and escape routes because we were prepping for something to happen. I mean, 2020 was fucked. 2020 was absolutely fucked in terms of.
Yeah, but no, it was so safe with Donald Trump president. Like I swear people just are delusional.
And there was this one where he's talking about the no new wars.
Peace through strength,
Peace through strength.
I just saw something where I was the only president for 78 years. No war started with. Now I wiped out ISIS. I did a thing that was, I won't go into names, I won't go into specifics, but we did a thing that nobody thought was possible. Did it very quickly. I withdrew from Syria. I withdrew from Iraq. I withdrew. They want to put people back. We're in countries that don't even want us. We're with countries that a lot of you never even heard the names of these countries. There's a great leader, in my opinion, is very strong. Some people say it's terrible to say that, but he is.
Orban?
Viktor Orban, he's the prime minister of Hungary. And they asked him, what would you do? There are wars all over the world right now. He said, what I do is make sure the American people vote for Donald Trump for president because when he was president, China feared him. I don't want to be feared, but he used the term, I'm not using the term. President Xi's a very tough cookie, but I think they did fear us. China feared him, Russia feared him, everybody. I even got along with Kim Jong-un. Getting along with people with hundreds of nuclear weapons is not a bad thing. They want to make it like a bad thing. It's a very good thing. But peace through strength.
Yeah. Yeah, he was the candidate of peace because there certainly wasn't any wars or, anything going on in the 4 years of Trump's presidency. Not like the United States was in constant war for his entire term all over the fucking world. But yeah, so I mean, just, I don't know how he gets away with this shit, this idea that he's some kind of peace candidate. Do you have a thought on that? Because I want to go to a rant on that. I want to go into my rant.
Do I have a thought? Is anybody else aware that he's out here just quoting Ronald Reagan again? Like,
Yeah.
peace through strength was like 1980s. Like that. Like, what the motherfucker? What the fucking, what the.
Wasn't
Sorry.
that Nixon too? Wasn't that Nixon's thing?
I think it was famously Reagan, but that's the worst part is that "Make America Great Again" was Ronald Reagan as well. He's just like, this is what I'm saying, man.
Yeah, Reagan was all about peace too. So was George W. Bush.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
But yeah, so he's talking about like no wars while he was president, and everybody respected him on the international stage. There were dozens of conflicts around the world while Trump was president. Yemen, Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq. And Trump dropped more bombs on Syria than any other president in history. Our bombing in Syria quadrupled when Trump took office. It didn't tone down the entire time he was president. We had hundreds of attacks on Israel. He talks about how Israel was safe when he was president. We had hundreds of attacks on Israel every year of his presidency. In 2018, the attacks on Israel tripled when Trump recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. We had the situation with the Kurds in Syria. Trump just like let Turkey invade Syria to destroy the Kurds. The Kurds ended up having to ally with the Russians to protect themselves. Essentially,
yeah, remember that was like a whole big scandal. Like he bragged about, I pulled out of Syria. I was like, and abandoned our allies, leaving them stranded and got many of them killed. Like
there was never an invasion while Turkey invaded Syria. He bombed Somalia. He bombed Pakistan. He bombed Iraq. He killed Qasem Soleimani. Almost started World War III with Iran.
Yeah, like this arguably, all this bullshit, Hamas, Hezbollah, all of it is probably the outcome, because that was right at the beginning of 2020, if you remember. It got lost in the news pretty quick because like a month or two later, the world shut down. But he opened 2020 with like the assassination of a high-ranking Iranian general after pulling out of a peace agreement that we had made with Iran. So basically, fuck yo peace, kill yo general. And now we're somehow surprised that they're funding rebel groups to attack one of our prominent allies in the region. Come the fuck on, people.
Yeah, sorry. No, really. Like that's really it. I mean, Obama had a deal with the Iranians. They were ramping down their nuclear program. That was, Iran was kind of coming back into the fold. Trump literally wiped his ass with the peace agreement when he took office, and they killed their top general. And now we're in the situation that we're in.
And is
today.
Now somehow blaming Joe Biden for the military consequences of that. Come the fuck on.
Come the fuck on. Not to mention Afghanistan. 65 U.S. troops killed in Afghanistan while Trump was president. The right wing gets all up their own ass about the 13 that died under Joe Biden. Well, they never mentioned that 65 died under Donald Trump. The idea to leave Afghanistan when we did was Trump's deal with the Taliban. He freed 5,000 Taliban fighters. He invited Taliban to Camp David on a state visit. He canceled it because the outcry was so bad. But basically, it was Trump's idea to make peace with the Taliban. 65 U.S. troops died under Trump. 13 died under Biden as we were leaving. Now the Taliban is in control of Afghanistan. After a 20-year war. So he's just completely fucking full of shit. Like I just utterly full of shit. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it pisses me off that he gets away with this stuff. And like nobody pushes back. Like this, like from mainstream legacy media, like of course Fox News isn't going to push back, but like where's the pushback from like MSNBC and like nobody pushes him back on this stuff. He's managed to completely rewrite history. His fans, his MAGA supporters are completely convinced that Donald Trump was the candidate of peace and like that there were no wars when he was the president and the world was completely stable. Like it's a asinine rewriting of history that just fucking boggles my mind. It just proves that people will get lost in their own echo chambers so hard they can't even remember 3 fucking years ago. It's like it's insane.
Well, it's an intentional strategy of him. He floods them with so much absurdity, right? Repeats lies so repetitively that he just basically like clouds the narrative, right? Like I don't know. It's pretty frustrating, but I would like to think that like history will redeem us all, if you will, right? But I guess that's assuming we survive.
Before this Houthi thing, before this Israel thing, we really weren't fighting anywhere. I mean, we had like our people pulled out for the first time in decades. we weren't really fighting anywhere.
You know, it's the militaristic feeling of like how I felt for that one like month after my student loans got forgiven, but before my car died, where I was like, wow, this is what it's like not to be in debt. And then it's like, no, fuck you. Now you have a car payment. So that's what it's like. We get out of Afghanistan. It's all this. I'm like, wow, this is what it feels like not to fight a war. Never mind.
I remember making videos about it. I remember that month when we pulled out of Afghanistan, we didn't have any troops in Afghanistan or Iraq or Syria. And it was like, wow.
What are we doing?
On the one hand, I'm like, wow, that's amazing. That's a relief. And then on the other hand, I'm like, but what's coming next? Because like we know something's coming. We can't just live in peace for very long.
Yeah.
So
not the way the world works, but only forever. So there's that.
The other one was he admitted, I don't have the video of this one because I got a little video happy. We've got more videos coming later.
But that, man.
He admitted to violating the emoluments clause, a week that the House report came out about that he had accepted millions of dollars from China, like something like on the low end, because we actually don't really know how much he got, but at least $6 million from state-owned Chinese banks that had like condos in Trump Tower. He admitted to it. He admitted to that in the House report at this town hall. He was like, "They stay by hotels. What am I supposed to do? Like, it's not my fault the Chinese want to stay at my hotels."
I know.
So
I was like, literally, like, we know it's not your fault, but it's literally the reason that clause is in there, because of course they will patronize your hotels, because giving you money will give you a favorable opinion of them. It's the exact reason that they put in the Constitution you weren't allowed to do that, because of why you ended up doing that. And I remember like when he was in office, like House Democrats were like making a big deal about it while he was there. And he was like, I'm not doing that. I don't pay any attention. My sons run the business. And now he's like, yeah, I made $8 million. They're not giving me $8 million for nothing. I was like,
yeah, they're not giving it to me for nothing. Yeah, I'm a good businessman. They give me money for my hotel.
Like the hypocrisy of it all, because aren't they always going like the way they go after like and I'm not saying that I support this because I don't think stocks should be owned by Congress at all, but like the way they go after Nancy Pelosi for it, the way they go after everybody, like they're trying to go after Joe Biden and say that he's using his powers of government to enrich himself. I'm like, so you're desperately trying to prove without evidence that Joe Biden is doing what Donald Trump is out loud bragging about doing. But like, it's only bad if Biden's doing it. Like, I
have those almost those exact words from Moskowitz coming up here on a video, but yeah.
Like, I just do not understand how they can say these things with a straight face, unless they have no idea what they're actually saying. And they are in fact just repeating shit they don't understand. Neither's great, but the second one's actually better because at least then they're not stupid.
Some of them are stupid and some of them don't give a fuck. But that's kind of the way it goes. But yeah, so I mean, it has like real world consequences. This Chinese bank was secretly had secret accounts that was helping the North Koreans evade U.S. sanctions. The Obama administration was launching an investigation into this bank and was going to sanction them. Trump called that off. The bank that has condos in Trump Tower was helping the North Koreans. Trump called off the investigation into them. Trump took a huge chunk of cash from the Saudis. Here, back to Yemen again. Took a huge chunk of cash from the Saudis, then did $100 billion arms deal with the Saudis. 85,000 Yemeni children died of starvation and a famine as a result of the Saudi incursion into Yemen, which again, we're still dealing with here. Still dealing with the outcome of that. Then there was the Jamal Khashoggi, American journalist Jamal Khashoggi, brutally murdered by the Saudis. Trump takes the Saudis' side. I don't think the fucking Saudis had anything to do with the brutal murder of an American citizen.
Even though they asked where he was, orchestrated a meeting with him, then he disappeared, and then they paid your son-in-law $2 billion. Yeah, I'm sure you had nothing at all to do with that whatsoever.
So real world, this is exactly what the founders were talking about. Divest your shit when you become president, so you have the interest of the country ahead of you, lining your own pocket. Trump not only did not divest, did not seek Congress's permission to not divest, he was actually actively hiding his interests from Congress the entire time he was president. So just yeah.
He is like the living embodiment of everything James Madison was afraid of. Like somewhere in hell, James Madison is like, they didn't listen to me at all. Did they even read my Constitution? He's so mad. He's so, like, Jimmy Mads is so pissed. Jimmy is straight mad.
Jimmy's straight mad.
Jimmy He's
M.
gonna be so pissed. Yeah.
Let's cover the presidential shit real quick. So the Iowa caucus this week. Holy hell, it's cold out there, man.
I know
It's
it's
like minus
Monday, isn't it?
30
Like
in Iowa
tomorrow.
or something like that. Just like
Oh
locked
wait,
in.
like that's happening like the night this comes out because yeah, we're recording Sunday, but that's tomorrow.
Yeah.
Woo!
Like literally
Wild.
it's unsafe. Like people, there's like like weather death warnings, like you will die if you're out in this weather.
Yeah. What is it like -4 in Iowa right now?
Yeah. Well, like with wind chill, it's like -30. It's like crazy.
That's gross.
Plus it's socked in with snow. It's just a lot of snow going on.
Yeah,
People
which
can't
just kind
drive.
of keeps it cold. Yeah.
So crazy. And do you want to cover like briefly how caucuses work? Like, so like they have to do people have to travel for this thing.
Yeah,
They
you
have to show up to their
be there,
precinct.
and it takes hours.
It takes hours. Like it
Yeah,
takes
the way I like to teach it to the kids is it's politics four corners.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is like the easiest way to figure. Like, and it doesn't necessarily have to be four corners because there can be more candidates, but it takes hours. Okay. You have to sign up for it ahead of time. It happens in each precinct. And it is essentially that your caucus goers, like you all have like people caucusing for you. And I kind of am giggling to myself, and I'm glad you giggled there because I have to teach this to teenagers. I want everybody to bear in mind that I have to repeatedly say the word caucus to a room full of teenagers. I've had to use the
caucusing
phrase,
takes hours. You have to get really into the caucusing.
Caucusing takes hours. You have to show up, and there are different caucuses. There's congressional caucuses, there's women's caucuses, there's black caucuses. These are all things I say in my classroom. And Troy's goofy ass smile should indicate to everybody how teenagers respond. When I say congressional black caucus in my classroom, I feel like nobody cannot giggle.
The black caucus is definitely the sort of the longest one, you might say. Maybe you might even say like the meatiest one. There's a lot going on in that black caucus. You know
what? You're just encouraging the craziness. It's fine. It
we
was
have
as bad
a
as
little
the
bit
motor.
of levity, God damn it.
Did I ever tell you about the motor voter thing in my class?
Yeah, the motor voter.
Are we gonna practice motor voting? I'm a hands-on learner.
Your
Hardest day
kids
of my
are
teaching career,
ridiculous, but also
they're ridiculous because I'm their teacher. It was actually funny. Like it was the new semester, so I got a new girl in my class. This is the really brief like aside. And so I did my first little lesson, and then I asked her, I was like, all right, so like, how are you doing? Are you scared? Did I scare you yet? And she literally goes, no, you're actually like a good teacher. And I just started laughing, and I was like, you say that as if you've like seen the Loch Ness Monster. And she starts laughing. She goes, yeah, I usually just fall asleep, but you're kind of interesting. I'm like, well, I got that.
I usually fall asleep, but you're kind of interesting. Well, that's a compliment.
I like the way she said it. I was like, you made it to your senior year, and it's like, oh, I finally found a good teacher. I was like, what am I, a fucking gnome? Fine.
It's
whatever.
It's snowing. It's really cold, and that the caucus, there's just girth to it. It just takes forever to get there. It's just a really
anyway, so how it works. So basically how it works is everybody's in the room, and they call like you have like a time limit. So it's like you have 10 minutes. It's not really 10 minutes, but like for sake of explaining, right? So they basically go around and they deliberate to all the people that are in the room. You have people who are on your side that are trying to win people to your corner, right? Some people show up knowing who they're going for. Some people show up like trying to be won over. So then they call time, and like everybody goes to their respective corner, and it's literally like that. Like you're all in the room and you move to the corner, and then they count it out, right? And
you literally like walk over. Like if you're supporting Haley, you would like walk over to the Haley corner,
to like the little Haley sign. Like imagine a high school gymnasium with little like posters on the wall, and you have to go stand in front of the poster like you're signing up for gym class in the 80s or something, right? Like that's kind of what it's like. So then they go through in the first round, and then they eliminate. Yeah, basically. And then they eliminate people as it goes, right? So you have to meet like a delegate threshold, right? For the first round. And then like the lowest people get kicked out. And then their delegates have to go and re-caucus, if you will. I said re-caucus. And then like,
sloppy seconds.
Like so second round picks up those delegates, and then another person falls off, and so on and so forth. And then that's how they rank them, right?
And they don't stop until they have a candidate.
And they don't stop until they have a candidate. Yeah. So it's going to be an interesting night. So yeah, they're all worried that people won't be able to show up because of the weather, that it's going to give some people an unfair advantage. Donald Trump thinks it's going to help him because his people are motivated and they'll crawl through the snow. I think it'll probably hurt DeSantis the most because nobody's excited about Ron DeSantis, not even him. He's like the most blah.
Well, it's also the key to this thing is that it is, unlike primary voting, it's not a secret ballot. Like you're literally in the room. So if you're supporting DeSantis, you are very much like literally in DeSantis's corner. everyone's going
Literally.
to see you walk over to the little DeSantis sign. So there's a bullying when in the Trump era. There's definitely a bullying factor that comes into it as well. I mean, people. These are
Mhm.
like it's Iowa. It's not. These are small towns. All these people know each other. So
Yep.
you can get away with talking a big game, in your conservative small town about how much you love Donald Trump, and then in most usual circumstances, you can go into a private voting booth and vote for Nikki Haley, and no one's going to fucking know. Well, no, not in this one. Everyone's
Not in
going to know.
this
All your
one.
neighbors are going to know that you're not a Trump person. So
Yeah. And I'm actually curious as to how that'll play out. You know what? I just genuinely don't know. I do know that Ron DeSantis was getting a lot of shit on Twitter because there's a picture of him with his 7-year-old son with no hat, no coat, no glove, his coat's unbuttoned, no scarf, no gloves. It's negative
there's
4
the Florida
degrees.
guy.
Yeah, and we're Floridians, right? So one, I get that you're not prepared for the cold, but two, we wear gloves and hats and scarves in 60 degrees, and you're telling me that your kid doesn't need you're telling me you didn't think to button his coat for -4? Come on now.
We also have all these Florida people and all these Republicans that don't know how to drive in snow. Laura Loomer got stuck in the snow because she doesn't know how to drive in snow. She had to have locals help her out.
Yeah.
Kind of funny.
She's from my area of Florida too, I think.
Yeah.
think,
Well, I mean,
not
it's
entirely
Trump
sure.
and DeSantis are both Florida people, so
Yeah.
but
We
yeah.
make them good down here, don't we? Yeah.
Chris Christie drops out of the race. We had a conversation about this the other day over text about who he will endorse.
Yeah.
We're getting some insider tips that it might be DeSantis. He and DeSantis had a conversation about after Nikki Haley's slavery gaffe. I guess Christie called up DeSantis and they were chatting about it, that that Haley doesn't know what she's doing. It was sort of a good old fashioned sort of boys conversation, misogynistic. Chris Christie is nothing if not a member of the boys club. So it's really, I think it kind of comes down to that, Kathy, that he's just kind of a misogynist.
That he's more of a sexist than anything. I would believe that.
Yeah.
But he doesn't like Ron DeSantis. You can tell the
I don't
body
think he likes
language.
anybody. Yeah.
Well, that's true. Like I said, in our conversation, I said that because he keeps talking about his commitment to democracy, right? So would he endorse Joe Biden? I think there's a universe where it could happen, but I think where we settled is that he's most likely just going to go scorched earth on Republicans this election, go get a job on a news channel and just whatever. Because I can't see him, because he made this in his concession speech, he made this big thing about how he feels bad about having endorsed Donald Trump, because now looking back at what he endorsed, he doesn't want to make that mistake again. And that, to me, that alone is why I can't see him endorsing Ron DeSantis, because I'm sorry, he's embarrassing. I wouldn't want to have my name associated with backing him up anywhere. And
Christie never was going to win. He never wanted to win. I think you brought up the point that he was trying to make it okay for sort of he was trying to give oxygen to the anti-Trump coalition, and it just never materialized. He was always kind of on a ledge by himself as the anti-Trump candidate.
He opened the window. Nobody bothered getting any air from him.
DeSantis grew some balls about 9.5 months too late to save his campaign, started going after Trump and didn't really do anything. Haley has been the most viable anti-Trump candidate so far. She's hit upon this messaging that she thought Trump was the right candidate for his time, but his time has passed, that kind of thing. Haley is definitely in second, although DeSantis has been creeping up. They've been there's been this coordinated hit effort at Nikki Haley when she started to kind of be definitely in second place, be definitely the Trump alternative. Her unfavorables have skyrocketed because they've just been Trump and DeSantis, and everybody have just been piling on.
They're going after.
Haley.
And remember I told you, right at the beginning when we were talking about it, I was like, they'll never actually let Nikki Haley do it. Just for the same reason they would have never actually let Tim Scott get it. They'll put a woman up there to say, look, we'll let women run. They'll put a black guy up there to be like, look, we have black people. But at the end of the day, they're not gonna give it to them, right? They're never gonna do that.
Hence the Christie call with DeSantis. I mean, it was, it's very much we can't let this fucking woman take the nomination.
Yeah, you got to remember, they are telling us exactly who they are and what they value, and they are telling us what they will not accept pretty clearly. And if you're not paying attention, I don't know, it's kind of on you at this point.
So, yeah, I mean, Trump's still up by 30 points or whatever over everybody. Trump's going to run away with it. It's really literally just about the competition for second place and who can remain viable. So it's basically down to DeSantis and Haley competing for second place. Haley has invested a lot of time in New Hampshire. She's hoping that she can have a strong showing in New Hampshire, which is the second primary. DeSantis has skipped New Hampshire altogether and gone to South Carolina, which is the third primary. So it's
because his brand of republicanism will not get him anywhere in Maine. It won't get him anywhere in New Hampshire because he's too MAGA-y, deep South Christian crazy person, right? Like New Hampshire Republicans aren't that. I mean, maybe there are some, but like overall, they're not. You know, like New Hampshire Republicans are old school Prescott Bush Republicans. You know.
Yeah. Prescott Bush. Wow, that's somebody I haven't thought about for a long time.
You know what? I went back in the depths of my brain for conservatism today. I was war powersing. What do you want from me, man?
Hey guys, listen, we have an awesome deep dive series going. We've brought back the deep dives, deep dive educational content, Patreon exclusive. So if you want to hear us to go and deep dive on these educational topics, historical, political topics, head on over to Patreon, patreon.com/justbuylesscoffee. You can subscribe. We've had a decent uptick of subscribers. People want to hear these Kathy deep dives for sure. $5 a month, you get access to behind the scenes content, merch, some stuff that the general public doesn't get access to, most especially these deep dive series. We wrap up the regular show. We go into a deep dive recording, only available for Patreon subscribers. So head on over. Subscribe today. Kathy, you kind of already teed up your deep dive a little bit. Do you want to hit it again real quick so people know what we're talking about today?
Yeah. So today we're going to go into the history of the War Powers Resolution. I thought it would be a good topic to discuss because there have been recently, that uptick in bombings in Yemen in response to attacks on, American ships in the Red Sea and all of this stuff. So you've seen Democrats come out and condemn Biden for doing so without authorization for Congress. The kids are asking me why he's allowed to do that because I had just taught them that Congress declares war. I also taught them the War Powers Resolution. So I will give you guys the same lesson that I gave the kids. And it basically came about in 1973 to response to Nixon and Kissinger carpet bombing Cambodia. Has it been effective? No. And that's the story.
No.
Stay tuned for why it did absolutely nothing. So, yeah.
Timely deep dive topic, War Powers Act.
Well, it's probably going to be a two-parter because I'll go into like all of this, but then because me and Troy and our little millennial hearts, I want to go into George W. Bush, Iraq, and how this allowed him to basically do that. So,
I mean, Vietnam and Iraq, two times when this.
When
a little
parallels
bit poorly.
The parallels between the two a little bit disturbing to those of us who know. So you'll probably hear me and Troy lament over having been called terrorist sympathizers in our young 20s for daring to point out that perhaps we shouldn't be blowing up Iraqi children.
Yeah. Yep.
Those were the days.
Fucking Israel being charged with war crimes at the Hague. I still can't get over that. We'll close with this. The Hunter Biden hearing goes off the rails once again this week. The Oversight Committee, actually, this one ostensibly was to debate holding Hunter Biden in contempt for refusing to submit to a private closed-door deposition. Hunter Biden said that he was more than willing to testify before the committee in public, before the cameras. Comer and the Republicans in that committee said they didn't want to do that. They wanted to have a closed-door private deposition. Hunter told them to go fuck themselves because they don't exactly have the best track record of presenting accurate information after those closed-door depositions. Hunter showed up to this one. He was there. He came in with his people. Really sort of a ballsy move to kind of say fuck you to the Republicans on the committee. Ironically, Nancy Mace said he has no balls. Nancy Mace, Republican Nancy Mace from South Carolina, said that he should be hauled off to prison immediately. He said he had no balls. They're just obsessed with this man's junk. I don't like.
I know. I was going to say he has no balls, and then Marjorie Taylor Greene was like, "No, he does. Look, I have pictures.
I have categorical evidence that he has testicles." So Marjorie Taylor Greene starts to speak. Hunter pulls a power move and just gets up and leaves. As she starts to talk, which I thought was hilarious. All the Republicans are fucking
You're
pissed off.
You're afraid of women. No, honey, no.
Marjorie Taylor Greene showing dick pics again. Like, what is it with this woman and Hunter Biden's penis?
And was flown back to Los Angeles the following day. And this is pictures that Hunter Biden had produced and uploaded to porn
Raskin
websites.
get furious
and
here.
it's marked out.
Chairman, point of parliamentary
showing
point
proof
of
proof of Mann Act violations.
Mann Act violations.
Democrats should not be offended by pictures that black out.
Have I been recognized?
They should be offended by
point of parliamentary
human
inquiry.
trafficking.
Mr. Chairman,
state your point.
Thank you kindly, Mr. Chairman. On July 26th, I sent you a letter about the last time this happened when the gentlelady introduced before this committee without any notice to anyone nude photos, pornographic images that were completely irrelevant to the purpose of the hearing itself. And my question to you is, are members allowed to simply put up sensationalistic, voyeuristic, pornographic images if they're not relevant to the actual object of the legislative proceeding? I want a parliamentary ruling on that.
Mr. Raskin, that's probably part of the questioning for Mr. Biden, violations of the Mann Act. Ms. Green's led on that issue.
No, this is
these
question
are
of the rules of the committee.
These pictures have already been entered into the record.
So in other words, you have accepted the idea that members can introduce irrelevant, sexually based,
How is this irrelevant?
Well,
how does it relate to Joe Biden?
How does it relate to?
We're not doing a criminal investigation of Hunter Biden.
Like the level of effort they will put into defending the dick pics, blows my mind.
You can see Comer just looking like just the wheels spinning in the back of his head, looking for any fucking possible way to defend Marjorie Taylor Greene showing these dick pics. My favorite too was Maxwell Frost. So Maxwell, we got tipped off that it had happened because Maxwell Frost tweeted it immediately. He was like, Marjorie Taylor Greene showing dick pics again. And you could see Frost in that video, like taking pictures of her sign and then like tweeting it on his phone.
He made a really good point that like, could this count as like workplace harassment for people who are being exposed to these images that like might not want to be exposed to these images? If they've been entered into the record, then everybody in that room has seen them. Why do they need to be broadcast once more? Right. Especially when they're this like, pornographic in nature. I like that he named her kink. He's like, your voyeuristic attempt. Like, I love it. I think it was brilliant. Also, I'll never understand their fascination with Hunter's dick. Like,
does she make her staff print out these pictures of Hunter Biden's
somebody's
penis?
Got to print them out, and I
put
can't
them
see
put
her
together. And then what does she do with these boards when she's done? Does she hang them up in her office? I mean, does she make her staff look at these images in her office? That is the real
question. If her and her little tantric sex god don't just like sit there and like stare at Hunter and focus on not climaxing.
She picked like a really good one too. There's an image of like there's a long black censor bar over his junk, just indicating just how well endowed his caucus is. But yeah, it's just crazy, absolutely crazy.
That's what it is. She's like, this is why I divorced my husband. Why didn't I have a black box? I'll stop.
Moskowitz was holding up a board. Moskowitz is just a national treasure. He was holding up a board of a picture of Trump with Epstein the whole time. Every time they went into like a little break or a sidebar, he'd put up this picture of Trump with Epstein.
And he had like a Smurf tie on too.
Yeah, he put on a Smurf tie because Comer called him a Smurf at one point. It's pretty funny. So let me give you a Moskowitz moment here. This was pretty cool. He was going after the Republicans over their hypocrisy. Back to the emolument stuff. So this is back on the emolument stuff about them attacking Hunter Biden for allegedly taking money from overseas interests when literally Trump has admitted that he made billions of dollars while he was president from other countries.
Listen, I won't talk about the photo and the 11 of them and the fact that he was on the plane and on the island anymore. What I will point out is the hypocrisy of today. The hypocrisy of today is you want to hold you guys break the rules by not complying with subpoenas in the last Congress, and now you're shocked. You can't believe after you broke all of that now it doesn't work. You come up here and talk about Hunter Biden's behavior, and you're so disgusted. But the guy that you all kneel to, okay, associates himself with a pedophile. But remember, I get
Mr.
it.
Chairman,
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, that should be stricken.
I ask his words taken
A
down.
statement
That
of a
should
fact,
be
and it's his
stricken.
time.
It's a
Mr. Chairman.
fact.
I ask his words to be taken
Okay,
down.
there's a motion to strike the words.
Yeah.
Yes.
On what grounds? On what grounds?
Just say that we associate with pedophiles.
He was referring to Donald Trump.
No, I said
The
Donald
man
Trump
just
associate.
said that we all kneel. I kneel to Christ. I stand for the flag.
Support?
And if you're concerned about
I'll
pornography
change my-
being
I'll
shown
change
in
my
public,
word to support.
Mr. Ranking Member, you might look to
No,
the
no,
library
fair point. No,
content
okay.
that your people
So
support.
you're referring to the kneel down.
That's Higgins.
Donald
That's
Trump
Clay
said that
Higgins.
I
someone
moved for
took
his
the-
words to be taken down.
And I think he withdrew
It's a
that.
motion.
I withdraw my.
He withdrew it. He withdrew that. That'll be taken.
We have to accept him withdrawing it.
All right.
Accept
Everybody
it.
good? That's going to be taken for the record.
Okay, I withdraw the kneel down. I'll use the word very much support. We okay with that? No snowflakes offended? Okay, wonderful.
No snowflakes.
Anyway, back to the point, Mr. Chairman, is that I just think the American people are tired of the hypocrisy, right? They're just tired of it. Because what they've recognized is when Donald Trump does something, it's just fine. But when someone else does it, it's a crime. Time and time again. What, you think the Chinese stayed at his hotel because they didn't have another choice? You think he wanted to have the G7 at Doral because Doral is the best property in America? Come on, you guys are smarter than this. You know he was trying to make himself rich, but when Donald Trump does it, when Donald Trump does it, when Donald Trump does it, it's just fine. But when a private citizen you claim does it, it's a crime. You guys don't have any credibility. You might have credibility on the Charlie Kirk show, but you don't have any credibility with the American people.
So, national treasure.
Love him.
Moskowitz.
Do you see where he represents? He represents where I grew up. He's from Coral Springs, Fort Lauderdale, Boca Raton. Boom.
Okay.
So if I still lived down there, he would be my guy.
Florida is simultaneously okay. So you have like two of my favorite members of Congress, Maxwell Frost and Jared Moskowitz, and then also some of like the worst fucking people on the planet in there. So
Yeah, but the best places in Florida are the places I have lived, right? Because Jared Moskowitz is where I grew up, and Maxwell Frost is where I live. The coolness just follows Kathy. That's what it is. If I'm there, it's a party. Obviously.
Boca and Orlando, and yeah, that's where you got to be, I guess. Wow.
The outside Orlando area, but sure, yeah.
Outside Orlando, sure. I don't have video of the Gosar thing. Gosar was drunk or is just completely losing it. I don't know. Gosar is.
I think it's fine to not have video of Gosar. I think nobody's going to complain.
He's a
about
fucking.
that.
He's bordering on scary. If I worked with Gosar, I'd be a little scared. He's nuts.
Doesn't his whole family think he's insane too? Like, don't
his
they
family's
come out
completely
and,
written him
publicly
off. Like,
say and say like, yeah, they're like, please don't vote for our brother. He's insane.
Raskin at one point he was. I forget the exact quote, but Raskin was like we're here to, we're here. Why aren't you guys presented any evidence about Joe Biden's impeachment? And Gosar was like, we have evidence. And Raskin was like, okay, what is it? Present your evidence. And Gosar literally just like mumbled unintelligibly for like
we
2
have
minutes.
Hunter's penis. I was like, all right, well, and that
Again, like, yes, you can enter pictures of Hunter's penis into the record if you want to. Every member of the committee has access to those photos in private. You don't have to actually show the dick pics in the committee hearing without warning, without telling anybody you're going to do it. And I guarantee you,
on television, no less, like
on C-SPAN, where the cameras don't cut away, the cameras don't censor that shit. And I guarantee you, she wanted to do it while Hunter was in the room. This is all about embarrassing Hunter Biden. It's just a public shaming campaign. She was hoping she could get away with it while he was in the room. He got up and left. So I don't know. It's embarrassing.
It's just really gross. It's like they're bullying this poor kid. Like, and I saw a post somewhere, and I honestly, genuinely don't remember where I saw it, but it's like when they attack him for his drug addiction, they are attacking everybody in America with a drug addiction.
They're
and I
so
don't know
callous
if they
about it.
realize. Well, yeah, like I just also don't think they realize how many people in America have a drug problem or know somebody who struggles with a drug problem, because like you're going after all of those people with this, and like they might not out loud be sympathetic to it because nobody really wants to draw attention to their drug addiction, but like it's bothering people. I can promise you it's bothering people.
Addicts get sober and they work their entire fucking, it's the one of the most uphill struggles for a person. I used to work in drug and alcohol rehab for 7 years. I'm not talking out of my ass. I know what these people struggle with. I have some of my best friends, they're addicts. The slightest little thing can be a trigger. The slightest little thing can cause them to relapse. They struggle with it their entire lives. Can you imagine Hunter Biden getting sober and then having to having his penis showed constantly in the United States Congress
television.
and being torn down constantly, having Fox reporters ask him to his face what kind of crack he likes? Like, this is triggering.
Yeah.
It's not just about Hunter Biden. This is like triggering for addicts everywhere. This is disrespectful to people who are genuinely good people and they struggle with addiction. It's just absolutely disgusting.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, they don't even know who they're insulting on this one. You know what I mean? And I would say to Hunter, like, I'm kind of like impressed with how well he's been able to kind of hold himself together on this one, right? Because the fact that he hasn't relapsed, the fact that this hasn't done him in is a testament to how hard he's worked and is working, if you make sense, right? Like, addicts never call themselves former addicts. They recognize that they are addicts forever, that you don't get over it, you control it, right? Like, what I kind of hope comes out of this, because it looks like Biden is kind of, or Hunter Biden, by that I mean, is kind of going into this head first. And I think maybe and a decent strategy could be to give voice to the addicts in this conversation, because Republicans are always quick to condemn the fentanyl coming over the border, but like have Hunter talk about, like, it wasn't that it was coming over the border, it was that it was easy for me to get it from my doctor, right? Put him on the campaign trail and talking about, do we want to live in a country that vilifies addiction, or do we want to live in a country that heals addiction, cures addiction, treats addiction? And I just think that like, this is all backfired on them in a remarkable way, like at every level, especially with him being there. Like, you're voting to hold this guy in contempt for not showing up to a hearing he's sitting in the room for, right? Like, Americans are watching that, they see that, and like, how are you going to explain that one away? Like, why is he in contempt? But if he was in the room, how is he not there? Like, because people don't really understand the difference between closed door public hearings. All they're going to see is, how are you saying he didn't show up if he's sitting right there? How are you, like, they're whatever.
Earlier, Moskowitz said, Hunter's here. Who wants to hear from Hunter? Raise your hand. And none of the Republicans raised their hand.
And none of them wanted to hear from them, because they know they wanted to be able to lie about what he said behind closed doors. And who's the that really, really, really awesome lady from Texas who always Crockett, I think.
Jasmine Crockett. Yeah, she's another up and comer too. She's amazing.
Ooh, she is fantastic. She just lays into them, and I'm like, hell yeah, girl. I love it. I love to see it.
She's another Moskowitz and Crockett come on Midas all the time. They're friends of the show. So.
Oh man, they need to be friends of our show too.
I know. Let's get them on.
Get them on here.
We're just about out of time. Thank you so much, Kathy, for a great conversation. We're gonna say goodbye to our non-subscriber listeners. Thank you guys so much for your support. We love you. Thanks for sticking around with us. Listen to us anywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Google, Spotify. If you want to see the video content of the regular show, head on over to YouTube, to the Just Buy Less Coffee YouTube channel. You can see the video recording of this episode. If you want to see the deep dive recording, which we are going to go into right now, head on over to Patreon, subscribe, patreon.com/justbuylesscoffee. Paid subscribers on our Patreon page get access to the deep dive recordings. So head on over and do that now. We're going to head on over into our deep dive. Thank you so much, everybody, for your support, and we will see everybody next time. You've been listening to Just Buy Less Coffee, answering the deeper questions of American politics, featuring Troy Matthews at Keep Troy Blue and Kathy Cannon at Cannon's Fodder. Follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Threads, and X. All opinions are our own.